No, we can't put in the ground, though. Cargo theft, strategic theft. It's been the story of the year. It's been the story all year. I know you're sick of hearing about the topic, and we'd stop talking about it if the problem didn't grow, but that's not the direction that it's going in. So we have to have Craig Leinauer on. He's director of inland marine claims at Travelers. And again, we have to get into it. And today we're going to focus a little bit more on an important aspect of it, though, right, Craig? The liability. So we talk like the theft is happening, right? But what are the repercussions? What are the repercussions of such theft? Craig, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am happy to have you on. First of all, we talk about this problem all the time, right? Cargo theft, strategic theft. What's going on right now?
Yeah, so theft isn't really just about finding a truck on the side of the road and breaking into it anymore. That's traditionally what's been called physical or straight theft, but strategic theft is what's happening now. And this is different because thieves are using deceptive practices to manipulate truckers or freight brokers. So technology plays a big role here, especially AI, right? And it's so sophisticated that there's really a whole new set of tools that thieves have. And so what we're seeing are blended methods where thieves impersonate legitimate trucking companies. They'll change bills of ladings, they'll create fake documents, and then they're also using other tactics like impersonation and phishing attacks to steal cargo. So believe it or not, there are actually several groups of advanced organized thieves that are internationally based overseas. They have their own supply chains and their own freight laundering rings, right? So, unfortunately, this is really putting cargo theft at an all-time high.
Man, it's not good at all. And it seems like it's been really hard. Like I was out in Atlanta at a NASCAR event with Relay Payments a few months ago, and there was a bunch of sort of heavy hitters on the risk side that were there, and they said their biggest problem by far was theft. And it's not just because the cargo itself is gone; it's because of the relationships and the trust that gets destroyed by it. So how do they protect themselves from this fraud?
Well, so it depends on who you are, first of all, right? If you're a trucker, you're strictly liable for cargo that you accept in good condition, and if the cargo doesn't make it to delivery, then you're on the hook for the loss. But you do have some liability defenses that are available to you, but they only work really if you don't know that you've accepted cargo that was stolen, right? So this is where paperwork is important. Drivers will often ignore discrepancies between bills of lading and load or rate confirmation paperwork. And if you overlook these kinds of red flags, then you're going to be out of luck trying to defend yourself because you're going to be considered to have been put on notice that the cargo was in fact stolen when you accepted it, right? So, and then also you have to remember this too as a trucker. Cargo insurance policies generally require the trucker to have physically accepted cargo for coverage to apply. So let's say, for example, an imposter uses the trucker's identity or DOT number to steal cargo, but the real trucker actually never touched the cargo or had it in its trailer. The real trucker has to have physically accepted the cargo to be liable and also has to have physically accepted it for most cargo insurance coverage to trigger.
Now, those are the carriers. What about the freight brokers? They're also involved in this. Oftentimes, the freight broker is the layer in between. They're blamed by the shipper or the carrier if something goes wrong, especially the shipper. Should they be having a laissez-faire attitude towards this, or what should their concern be?
Laissez-faire. Yes. Well, freight brokers are unique because, they really don't handle the cargo. And as such, they're really not supposed to be, generally, they're not deemed to be liable for cargo loss. But what we see increasingly is happening is that brokers, to satisfy their shipping customers, are signing contracts, right? And they're signing these contracts that make the broker fully liable as if they were the actual trucking company that's hauling the cargo. So because of this, the broker can end up on the hook for really, some significant loss. And often we'll see cases where brokers are notified of thefts way after they occur, because brokers are, one step removed, not there when the freight is accepted or there when the freight is delivered. But then they're expected to pay for full retail value of the stolen goods without any real recourse. In fact, I just saw a case recently where a broker was contractually liable for 60 separate stolen shipments, and each of these was valued at about 80,000 per shipment. So this added up, over a few months to about roughly $4.8 million. And the broker didn't learn about these thefts until months after they were completed.
Man, Craig, we were talking earlier about the freight recession being over. So we know how sensitive carriers are to this market and how sensitive they could be to a bill like that. Now, the freight recession, maybe ending, but 4.8 million can take a lot of people down. It's not pocket change. So if I'm a broker, what kind of insurance do I need so I don't get killed by that?
Right. So two kinds of insurance for you as a broker, right? Liability insurance and contingent cargo insurance. Liability insurance is especially important to you as a broker if you're going to contractually assume liability like we're describing, but you really have to ask yourself, are your coverage limits high enough, right? Because a $250,000 policy limit on your insurance, policy isn't going to cover very much of a $4.8 million strategic theft. It's just not enough insurance, right? Secondly, in terms of contingent cargo insurance, that will cover cargo loss when the broker isn't liable, but the trucker who's strictly liable fails to pay. But the problem is these policies will typically exclude losses due to double brokering or acts by dishonest drivers or when the cargo was released because of fraud. So, as a broker, you need to really, be extra vigilant to guard against these kind of schemes.
Well, I'm getting the picture, man. Coverage is very, very important to make this happen. What are the best practice recommendations you would have in light of all this?
Yeah, it depends on who you are, right? I mean, if you're a trucker, there's a couple things I'll recommend. One, always make sure that the delivery address on the bill of lading matches the address on the rate or load confirmation. You should confirm the delivery address with the shipper, and if there's an attempt to redirect the shipment by anybody, contact the shipper immediately to confirm that this is legitimate. And then secondly, if you think your identity has been stolen as a motor carrier, as a trucker, you should notify all known freight brokers that you do business with about your correct phone number and your correct email information so that they can be vigilant. So that's what you can do as a trucker. In terms of a freight broker, I would say to you as a freight broker, you should encourage your shippers to consider uploading or emailing the signed bill of lading to the consignee as soon as the shipment is accepted by the trucker, right? At pickup, and that way the consignee at delivery can verify the information when the cargo arrives. And then secondly, you should take time to review your contracts. Right? There's this whole, as I've mentioned, contracting into liability. That you really need to be aware of. You need to understand your liability exposure. So, and then ask yourself contractually, does the other party have an obligation to let you know if there's been potentially some theft or fraud, right? Make sure that all parties to the contract agree to provide each other with notice if they suspect that a shipment is subject to theft or fraud. And look, it comes down to this, right? Theft by fraud, and everybody knows this right now, is a growing industry issue. And this has resulted in huge increases in cargo loss claims. Vigilance, timely communication by everybody involved in the stream of transportation is critical to prevent these kinds of losses. And then it also goes without saying that you need to understand your liability as well as your insurance coverage to save you and protect your business from significant financial loss.
Man, it's a scary, scary, brave new world out there. Like it doesn't sound like in 2025 this is a topic that is going to be moving off what the track. If anything, it sounds like we're going to have to talk about this one even more as this problem only grows. But it pays to be informed, and these are tough things. But it's going on out there. You got to protect yourself. You got to protect your partners. If people want to do that, what's the best way to get in touch with someone like you or travelers?
www.travelersinsurance.com is the way to go.
Bring it home. Bring it home. Well, Craig, thank you
All
so
right.
much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.